where you can throw quite a lot of bait in regularly, not pellet fishing, what Tom showed you yesterday, which presumes about feeding a little bit less bait, just a couple of pellets at a time, a lot of the time. With this, it's about being aggressive on the line and building it up and try and get a lot of fish there feeding. So the baits that I'd normally choose to use, maggots obviously, casters, so you could come and fish with casters, and it's probably what I'd do in a match situation. If I went to a venue and I thought I'm going to fish casters shallow, I'd use them for short as well, so that you're not having to bring both. Exactly, yeah. Whereas if you know you go into a fishery where maggot works better shallow, you might fish maggot. So just for a bit of a difference in baits, I actually think maggots are probably better as long as there's not a load of tiny fish in a venue than what casters are as well, because you can get away with feeding a little bit more bait and not run the risk of overfeeding your peg. The thing with maggots is they can crawl away, so you'll chuck them into the silt and eventually they'll just work their way into the silt. So if you fed a little bit too much bait, your peg can come back too, because the maggots will actually crawl away. Whereas if you do that with pellets or meat, it's just sat there on the bottom and your peg's ruined. So I think that's why maggots can be good for this swim. The only thing obviously we've got to watch out for today is the small fish, and I imagine on this first session today we'll get quite a few small fish, and then as we carry on fishing,
you fish them out.
We should get some better fish starting to come in. So maggot wise, this time of year I always tend to use white maggots. So whenever it's starting to get a little bit of colour into the lakes as it starts to warm up from winter, and then all through the summer I use white maggots. In the winter time I just use red. When it's clear you tend to find like a darker bait better. When it's a bit more coloured, a lighter bait tends to work. Same with ground bait, you use dark ground bait in the winter, light ground bait in the summer. So the only other thing I've bought is some ground bait. Now if I feel like I can catch the fish into shallower water today, so on this line where I need to bring them round onto the harder bottom, sometimes you can get away with putting a little bit of ground bait in, like what you do down the edge. And it's something I do a lot at places like Tunnel and Partridge when fishing for F1s, and they're quite crafty, they don't like coming into your peg. You've got to sometimes try and force them to come in. So what I sometimes will do is I'll put a little bit of a bed of ground bait down on the bottom and then loose feed me maggots over the top. And that little bit of extra attraction off the ground bait will keep the fish in the peg. Because what I think happens is when they come in and start feeding, they start kicking the ground bait up and clouding it. It keeps attracting new fish all the time. Now, if I'm fishing on that deep line where it's on the silt and I put ground bait in, it'll just be a mess. It'll bubble and it'll fizz. So on that line, I'd never put ground bait in. But
because the water's too deep. Because the water's too deep.
And the silt as well on the bottom, it'll just start to fizz up too.
So the near line's got less silt. Okay, right.
So if I can catch them on that shallower water today, and I'm going to show you both. I'm going to put some ground bait in the shallower water as well as, you know, on that line where we're on the silt, and I'll show you, you know, both how both lines and how I'd fish them. So I'm just going to riddle the ground bait with me riddle that I thought I'd lost. I didn't know how that ended up over there. I must have, like I say, when I bought the casters round, I must have bought that round with me. So that ground bait's just quite dry today, which when I'm fishing and just feeding ground bait in the edge, I like to wet this down a lot more than this.
So it sinks.
Yeah, just so it's heavy and it stays on the bottom. Now what I said to you before is I want this to cloud up a little bit to keep the fish coming back. I'm not trying to solely feed ground bait, it's just going to be initial bed from the bottom. So I actually feed this ground bait fairly dry when I feed it like this, because I just want it to go down, spread out on the bottom and just create a bit of like, it's almost like a dust on the bottom just to keep the fish coming back. So
loose, or do you call it?
I put it in loose, even if it's 4 foot deep. If I was fishing onto that harder bottom and I thought I could get away with it, I just feed it loose. So I've got my ground bait. That's commercial pole mix from Blake's. Now I had to rob some off Mark today because I'd obviously used it all up when I was on the festival at Tunnel. But this is the ground bait what I always use for all my summer fishing. Just works nice. It's just literally all pellets what's in that mix, so it just works well. And it's the one I always use, so just keep it nice and simple. Find a ground bait what you like using. don't need to ever change it for any different styles of fishing. I use that for fishing in the edge for carp, for F1s, I could use it for skimmers or anything. It's just simple ground bait mix. So that's the bait. I'll get some tubs, put them in. My bag's absolutely full of crap now after yesterday and all, just chucking everything away in the rain. I blame Rob that for keeping me fishing. Ground bait. That landing net's getting on my nerves. You know, if you're going to be fishing shallow as well with them, you're going to need a few more, but if you're going to be just fishing it solely from the bottom, you probably only need 3 pints, because again, it seems to be something that you're going to do later on in the session, that short line as well. So I tend to find that because you're not sat fishing it all day, you don't need pints and pints and pints of it.
From the start?
Probably, yeah. It depends on if I knew that I was going to be catching on maggots. So at tunnel, like it's been good maggot short, you would prime it from the start. But if not, you maybe you went to a venue that you didn't know great. You might start that line off on pellets, and if that's not working, you change it later on in the session to maggots. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is go to a venue and chuck maggots in straight away and attract all nuisance fish, and then obviously you wish you hadn't put them in then. So. Kit pot on. So talking about the rigs straight away. Now, rigs for me maggot fishing, I want to try a lot of the time to use the lightest floats possible when I'm maggot fishing, because what tends to happen is the fish watch the bait fall down. Maggots are a light bait, so when you throw them in, they take ages to sink. Probably in the depth of water what I've got today, which is 5 foot, they probably take 15-20 seconds to hit the bottom. When you chuck them in, they take a long time to sink, probably even longer than 20 seconds to be fair, 20 odd seconds. And really, I think sometimes, depending on what maggots you've got, I think they can sink quicker and slower if your maggots are bigger, smaller. I just think you could never be that scientific with it. I don't think. I've tried looking at that in the past and it's bizarre to work out. I don't think it's too important. More than anything, what I'd maybe do is change the timing of when I'm feeding to try and, if I feel like the maggots are still falling as my rig's getting settled, and I'm foul looking fish, I might chuck my bait before I ship out and stuff like that. I don't count, like how long the maggots are sinking before I lay my rigging or anything like that. But yeah, I've got 5 foot of water today. Like I say, it'll take a long time to sink. Now, if I could get away with a float like a 4x12 float, where I can lay it in and let it fall in, I'll 100% get more bites off them smarter fish like the F1s and the carp and stuff like that are just watching the bait fall. But the problem you're going to have on lakes like this, particularly like this Laurels, Willers is the same. You'll throw your maggots in, if you let it have any fall at all, you just get marvelled with small fish. So on a venue like this where there's a lot of small fish, you have to use a more positive rig. So if this was Partridge Tunnel where there's not so many small fish, this would probably be a 4x12 float, and then it'd just have a bulk of number 9s and one number 9 dropper, and it'd be a lot lighter. Normally a 4x12 Maggie takes around 5 number 9s, it's like 0.2, 0.3 in size. Now this float what I chose to use today is a 4x16, so a heck of a lot heavier, and I've literally again just got a bulk, and that bulk's got 8 number 8s and 1 number 8 dropper, so it's really heavy. I'm going to go in, I'm not going to flick my rig in, I'm just going to flick it out, hold it up, drop it down, get it down to the bottom past the small fish. So you just got to be mindful with your rigs and thinking about what fish are in the lake. If there's no nuisance fish, use a smaller float, let it come in a lot slower, lay it out.
Would you ever
give
do
them
reverse tape for it?
You could do for silvers, but this time of year when you're trying to catch lots of F1s and carp, I think it's too faffy. I personally think.
Foul up as well.
Yeah, you foul up more. When the fish turn up as well, you flick your rig in and everything's taking too long to catch up and settle. Whereas with this bulking droppers or a bulking 2 droppers, you can just go in and just drop it down really quick if the fish turn up strong. So I just personally think this time of year you just want to use a simple shotting pattern. So normally my shotting pattern's a bulb, and it's normally around a foot from the hook, and I just have one dropper above a 4-inch hook length. So line wise, I've got 017 main line and 013 hook length again. Again, we're fishing for the same fish we were fishing for up in the water yesterday, really skimmers, F1s, might get an odd carp mixed in, so there's no need to change the gear, nice and simple. 16 Super LWG. I'll probably be fishing today with 3 or 4 maggots on the hook, even if it's smaller skimmers, again to try and avoid the small nuisance fish. You just want to be able to catch the quality. And that's a 16 up, yeah. So sometimes I might even go up to a 14 for putting 4 or 5 maggots on, even at this sort of fishing.
Okay.
And then the elastic, I've just gone a little bit heavier than yesterday. I've gone up to white hydro, just because when you're fishing a bit of a longer rig like this, it just helps you to land the fish faster. When you fish shallow, you can tend to get away with a little bit of a lighter elastic because your rig's a bit short and you can lift them up. But with a long rig, if you use like orange hydro, you're really having to stretch to try and net the fish. So just go up a little bit of a size of elastic when you're fishing in deeper water. So just gone up to a white hydro. Now, like I say, that today is about, it's about an inch under 5 foot in the full depth of the short line there, where we're at the bottom of the slope. Now, I'll show you what I'm looking for when I'm plumbing up this line. Now, I know you've seen me plumbing up, but I just want to talk through it. So, distance where I know I'm in the full depth of the peg. So if I go out to 6 metres, I've got that full depth there, which is the same depth what I was fishing on that short line. So I know I'm still in the full depth. Then all I do is I just come back towards myself until I feel my plummet bang into the slope. And you'll feel it obvious on the your pole. So I'll keep coming, and then you'll there. Just you feel it hit that slope, and now you'll see that's where the slope starts to come up. So I always look on this line to fish at the bottom of that slope. So if I know that here is where I join the slope, here where I roughly sort of felt it hit with the plummet, I just look to go beyond that. So on this peg today, I can fish at that distance. So it's a short top tip, short 4 and a 5. I know I'm in the deepest water here, and I'm just at the base of that slope. Now, one reason I like to fish at the base of the slope is because a lot of the time it's a little bit closer to you, so I could easily fish this far and I'll still get bites, and I'll still be able to get bites. I'll still have the same depth of water, well, you know, a very similar depth of water anyway. But when I throw my maggots in, I'm going to be having to throw them further, they're going to be spreading out more. Going to just make it more difficult for me to catch fish quick. I always think the further out that you go as well, and the further away from yourself that you go, the fish are more likely to come up off the bottom and give you foul hookers. So I want to fish as close to myself as I can while I'm still in the deep water. So that's why I always try and look to the base of the slope, if that makes sense. So that's why today I'm choosing to pick this line. So it's just in this area. So I'm going to just start, so I can start building my swim up. I'm going to start throwing a few maggots in there. I'm going to be fairly positive with my maggots. I'm going to build that swim up.
So you double throwing, Kieran, yeah?
Yeah, I always throw twice when I throw my bait in. So again, when I touch on feeding a little bit more, I'll explain the reasons why I think that that's really important to throw twice. But I'm just going to start building that up, and that's my deep water line. So what I always say with this sort of fishing, like I said then, go out, find the deepest water, keep coming back till you bang the slope, and just fish just beyond that, which today is the top 2 sections. Now, the problem with that line, where I'm going to be fishing at the bottom of the slope and I'm on the deep, what I said about the tilt, if I have a real good arrival fish today, there's a lot of fish will be, you'll start having problems ripping the bottom off and causing problems. So this is why I've also put a line in a little bit shallower water to fish onto the harder bottom. So I tend to find on days where it's really difficult, you won't be able to get bites on that harder bottom. You have to fish on the silt to get a bite. But I always set both up in case it fishes well and the fish want to go up into the shallow water. So that's why I've gone for this next rig. again, I've used the exact same float and setup on this rig. Again, I just want to bomb my bait down to the bottom, even though it's shallower. There's no need to scale that.
That's what I say about black bait, isn't it? Get it to the deck, get it to the deck.
Plus little ones.
Depth wise on this, we've got around 3.5 foot.
That's coming straight at me then.
We've got around 3.5 foot of depth on this rig. Now, ideally, what I try and look for is I'll come up in the deep water again, and I'll come round until I find another flat area to fish.
Okay.
So on this peg today, what I've got today, obviously we know this is the deep water there, and then as we come round, it just comes up a tiny little bit, but it's quite uneven there, and then as you see me when I'm coming up before, it just comes up a little bit more as you get to sort of in line with the edge of the island here, and then I've got a little bit of an area where it's not perfectly flat, but it's fishable. I can just line up with that edge of that island, pull my rig into the slope there and fish. Now this peg isn't perfect today. I would like an area, maybe the size of that bait box, all the same depth if I can find it, but you've just got to try and find a little bit to fish on. It's a little bit better.
So remember boys, you'll be going to
Benny's afterwards.
Benny's afterwards.
It's fishable, isn't it there?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Because
Oh, Tom, thank you. How long are we into the thingy? Because I've not long really started.
well, he said he's 20 odd minutes in, but if you say that you started at like say half past or something, so
Yeah.
you've got like half an hour or so, haven't you?
Oh, down, no worries. So I've just got a little bit of an area there where it's fairly flat. I can fish it, and it's just that little bit shallower, and it's a harder bottom there. That's the crucial thing. If I can get the fish to feed there, I'll just be able to catch them so much easier. So.
And you're having a pimple above the surface water.
What's that?
You're having a pimple of your float above the surface water.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because of the conditions.
Back to the bar, found, grabbing,
But,
coating, setting that.
Yeah, ideally you want it to be, like I say, a little bit of a flatter area to fish, but that's flat enough to fish on. Just look for having a rig
With rain.
just up that slope into a little bit shallower water. I actually think today that this line could be quite good, because I get the feeling that on that deeper line, I might get the fish coming up shallow on us a little bit, because obviously shallow worked quite well yesterday. Now this line isn't a margin line as such. This line, when you look into this deeper water where official people say you sort of come into the edge, you don't want to be coming right into the shallow water in the edge and throwing your maggots there. This line basically a short line, and it's almost like your top kit line in front of you, but it's down your peg a little bit more. I don't like fishing this top kit line right by your neck, because I think the fish don't settle there very good, so I'd rather fish a little bit further and just come round on an angle into that shallower water like that if I feel like I need to come onto the hard bottom. That makes sense. Yeah, I just think you want to keep it out the way. The only time I ever fish really close to myself like this is on days where the venue's fishing its head off. Places like Monk Hall that can be good because you're fishing for a real big wave. And yeah, the closer you get to your nets, the less fish come in your peg, so you don't have too many in your peg. When you're just trying to get bites and catch a few fish, you don't want to be fishing here, do you know what I mean? So generally I just try and fish a little bit further out my peg, keep them maggots dropping in. Now the only other rig that I've got, which again, if I find that I'm getting them coming up off the bottom on my short, but I can't catch them in the shallower water, which can sometimes be the case where they just will not move up that slope at all, then I'll obviously have my deep shallow rig as well set up. So that's the same rig that I used yesterday for my cast to shallow, my deeper one. Just got a little F1 shallow with the strung out shot at the bottom. Shallow, so probably fish a double banded maggot on the up, and if they start coming up on me there and I start foul looking, I'll try the shallower water, and if I can't catch them there, I'll go back to the original line and I might have to fish them shallow. So sometimes you find that's the case even on your short maggot line, you can catch them shallow there at that distance. So got that set up. So we're going to start fishing. Now again, this is another line that in a match situation I'd want to build say, this time of year, I don't think there's any room for double maggot on a venue like this. There's too many small fish. You're trying to catch these big quality F1s and skimmers. I would probably start on a minimum of 3 maggots on the hook. Now, hooking your maggots is really important. That you hook them all through the fin end when you put in sort of 3 or 4 maggots on.
Size up here, is it 16?
16. Again, if I was going up to, I've had it days where I've done this sort of fishing where I've even put as many as like a big bunch of maggots on, and I might put 14 on with like 6 or 7 maggots on. No, not really. I've not had too much of a problem. You get one, you know, every now and again you might get one roll over, but it's not something I have a problem with really. I just use that 16 up, 3 maggots through the thin end like that, and it just tends to leave plenty of hook exposed like that. So initially I'm just going to start fishing, and I'm not going to use my pot. So this is where I've got this big hooking kit pot as well set up. I want it for feeding me ground bait, but I also might use that for maggots, for dumping in a volume of maggots. Sometimes you'll find that you need to put a volume down to get past them bits and then like fish it out on a venue like this. So I've got that there, and if I find that throwing maggots in I'm just attracting too many nuisance fish and I'm having problems, I'll probably pop like 100 mil of maggots in and fish it out. So that's why that big pot's there as well. But we're going to see if I can get away with loose feeding today. See what happens. So I've got some crap on me up. Go in and lay me rig in. Just see how bad the silverfish problems is. If this just settles up and goes straight away with small fish, then I know next year I need to feed a little bit heavier and I need to drop my rig in a bit more positive. So go in, be nice and positive when you feed. Don't, with maggots, that's a small fish or what that was. With maggots, don't feed that many maggots.
Small.
Yeah, little fish. So again, don't feed like this many maggots. You can see how many maggots I'm chucking in now, and I'm already getting probably small fish. That many maggots won't even get to the bottom. At this time of the year, you've got to give them a decent amount. So I'll always look to feed sort of 30 or 40 maggots on a venue like this where there's a lot of nuisance fish.
They're right into it.
Right, I'm going to go back in, 3 maggots on the hook. And to be honest today, I think the small fish problems are quite bad early because I haven't fed it up for long enough. I've only really just started feeding it. Generally the fish will naturally, the bigger fish will generally naturally push the small fish out after a little bit of feeding anyway. So I'm going to keep being nice and positive initially with the bait. You see, when I throw this distance, I try and throw my bait in like
Short.
feet down like that, so that I'm making a bit of a noise on the water. I want to try and attract them fish into the peg. If I just throw it underarm like that, you tend to find that you land a lot softer on the water. The lake's towing a lot today compared to yesterday. Once you sit on its side like that, it's weird. It must be, that wind must be going all through the trees, getting towing like this. Little funny bites. I'm not sure whether they're nuisance fish or not at the minute. So I've only hooked 1 fish and it's a little small fish, but at the minute I'm just trying to get settled in and get my bait in. Work out how much I need to feed, whether I need to give it a dump pot or I need to just loose feed everything. So at the minute, even though I've had a few nuisance fish bites, it doesn't seem too bad. The rig is getting down to the bottom. It's probably going to take a little bit of time to get going. So what you've got to be careful of when you're doing this sort of thing,
Skimmer.
skimmer hopefully. Oh, it's not. Felt like a skimmer that, didn't it? Yeah. It's a good sign though, at least I've hooked the better fish.
So every time you catch a fish, whether you catch it or not, you're changing the maggot?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Even if it looks okay when you're doing this sort of fishing, where fish have a little bit more time to inspect the bait. When I'm shallow fishing and catching a lot of fish, I'd probably reuse a maggot if I was catching a lot of fish, but when they're having chance to watch it and before they pick it up, I feel like it needs to be as well presented as possible, really. Again, I'm going to ship out this time. I'm going to try and just get my rig straight down to the bottom, so by that what I'll do, drop my pull right over where I'm looking to fish, bomb it straight down, and then get down, probably get nailed by a rope now on the drop now. Yeah, there was one on there just as I said it. Bomb it down. I need to get some bait in. Really what I would have liked to do if I was set up a little bit sooner is be a lot of small fish there now.
So you keep a short lash on it on purpose, or it's just the way your rig was?
Yeah, I want a short line between float and pole, particularly when I'm fishing near a slope, because if I have too long a line and it drifts, I could be fishing in a different depth of water. So it's really important that you be nice and accurate.
Right, okay.
What's this? Pulling funny, whatever it is.
It's fair looked.
Perch, no degree.
That's a bit smallest bream I've ever seen.
Got a skimmer then. There, a lot of the fish what you are trying to catch on this line, like if you can catch a lot of these fish mixed in with your F1s, the weight builders, like what's that, pound and a half?
Yeah,
£2, pound and a half fish.
pound and a half.
So the good weight builders them in a match.
Because you're not guaranteed to catch the F1s or the carp earlier on, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes you don't always draw pegs with a, a good volume of
Yeah, F1s in front of you.
F1s in a match, so you've got to sort of sometimes change your approach to try and put some fish in the net. Now, I would say when you're at tunnel where we've been for the last few days, when you're on a lot of fish, you catch them up shallow on casters, you catch them shallow on maggots. When you're on a tougher peg or if you're on a shallower peg, you sort of have to fish this line to try and get the best out of a tougher peg. So one of them lines, sometimes it can become a match winner when the F1's really rock up strong on it. It's just a good line just to put in fish in your net. So, headache coming off them skimmers. Feels like the elastic's a bit too heavy, but it shouldn't be. I used it yesterday and it's fine. Felt like a good bite. Just double check me. I think that's alright. That was another skimmer, that wasn't it? So, I'm going to go back in again. Try and bomb my rig down to the bottom. I don't think with them approach there, I don't think there's any advantage now to lay the rig out.
So you put your float in before you throw the maggots?
I do when I first start, and now I'm
Okay.
probably doing that but without even thinking about doing it, sort of second nature. When I first drop in on a line, I want to drop it floating and then feed because I want to see indications on the
Oh, on your line, yeah, of course.
happening.
You can see if the float's going to do this sort of thing.
So I want to know whether is there F1s there up
Shout,
shallow,
okay.
is there that's some small fish on it again, is the what's in my peg, that's what I want to know. So by laying it in first and then feeding, it tells me that small fish.
So you changed one maggot there, not all of them, okay.
Yeah, well, one of them was knackered and the other
Okay.
two looked alright, so
Okay.
I just changed it. And try and bomb it down to the bottom. I think if you'd have fed this up for a little bit of time, like I said before you started, there wouldn't be as many nuisance fish problems as what there is. Once them better fish turn up, they tend to bully them small fish out.
So you won't put ground bait on that line?
Not on this swim.
Okay.
Just because we're on the softer bottom, you'll just have a nightmare with
Okay.
and foul looking fish.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
You could do as well if you wanted to get it down quicker. Again, you've got to be careful of having it too close where it starts to tangle again. So the way I always set my rigs up, I always want a bigger gap between my bulk and my dropper than between the dropper and the hook, so that it's not getting tangled. Down on the bottom now, so just hold my rig still. Even if I'm not getting indications, I don't want to be like lifting it up and dropping it back in.
And how heavy is your float again, Kieran?
4x16 it is on that.
In English? Is that 0.4, is it?
It's probably like a 0.5.
Okay.
So now that my rig's down on the bottom, I don't want to be lifting it and moving it because I want it to.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't want to lift it up and a roach have a chance to get it.
Right.
On the bottom,
Because the bigger fish to come down there rather than lifting and dropping all the time,
Yeah.
okay.
hopefully this gives me a chance to get a lift and drop if the roach haven't pecked my maggots off on the way down, and that's why I can't get a bite. But I'm going to wait it out. Can't believe how strong that lake's towing compared to yesterday. I see it wanting to back up on itself. Yesterday it was perfectly still.
Oh, lovely.
Now, just double check the maggots were on. Should have just sat there.
So how long were you just sitting there for? 2-3 minutes?
Yeah, so with this sort of fishing with maggots, you should be getting quick bites because if there's not decent fish in your peg, you should catch a small fish. So if you're not getting bites fast, it's probably time to go back onto one of your other swims if you're on it,
Okay, yeah.
and then keep feeding it up. Like the main thing what we've missed today is obviously that time building it up. I'd very rarely go straight in and start fishing maggot short. It's one of them lines you've got to give time. So
Okay. Hence wasted half an hour at least.
yeah. When you hook the fish again, make sure you give them a decent handful of maggots. Might be an F1.
Got more elastic, it's fighting.
Yeah, well hopefully that's what's happened, because obviously the bites have slowed up a little bit when I could get my bait down to the bottom. Sorry mate, I'll try not to take you out for the land. Nice F1. So, yeah, in a match situation, just make sure you're building your swim up first, spend a bit of time, and then hopefully when you go in, you should be able to get a good run of fish like that. Key things I'd say about that short line are just be nice and positive with your feed when you're fishing with maggots. Where you should plumb up, make sure you plumb up at the bottom of that slope, which one, it makes it easy for you to throw your bait, you know, you're not going too far, and also it gives you the options to come straight in up into shallower water and just moving round. Whereas if you go to 6 metres say, and then you want to come into shallower water, you've got to go back a heck of a long way and you've got to then bring the fish back towards you. So that's a, you know, just a couple of little important things about that sort of style of fishing. So now that I feel like there's a few there, what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed before I go in. So what I might do sometimes, I might feed me maggots and then put my bait on, so that by the time I blade my rig in, that's what I was touching on before. Once I feel like I know what's going on in my peg, then I need to work out what's the easiest way to go in and catch one quicker. So that's what I'm thinking now. Feed before I ship out. Now by the time I've got my rig down to the bottom, hopefully then maggots will have settled on the bottom, and then I won't get any daft bites. It should just go straight under. Again, I don't feel like there's loads and loads of fish there yet. Can't believe how strong that's towing. Hey. Skimmer. Oh. Why are them skimmers coming off? They're doing me head in.
So it's not only us then, or the likes of us. It's not because you've got too many maggots on the hook then?
No, I don't think so. Never
Okay.
normally a problem, but
Right.
just probably because I'm doing a coaching thing and they're trying to make me look silly.
They're not doing a good job.
So again, 3 maggots on the too many on, they might stop picking the hook bait up. So again, I'm just gonna feed before I ship out. At the minute, we're not getting any problems with fizzing, or we're not getting, you know, any foul looking. You know, I've lost a couple of them skimmers, so I'm not even thinking yet about how I might need to come up into that shallower line. But obviously, as the day goes on, that might be something that I think about. Right, stay on. So again, when you hook one, give him a big handful. Now a lot of people don't want to catch these fish in a match. They say, oh, they just want the F1s and that, but they don't half add up then. When you get a couple of F1s mixed in, people will be surprised how good a weight you can catch. Now, if I was coming on the commercial national tomorrow and I was on this lake, I would 100% be putting the short line in to catch some of them fish, because when you're fishing for team points,
Every fish counts.
yeah, and if you're not on a flyer, you're better off getting good team points fishing for them than trying to win the section and bombing out, you know what I mean? So I'd 100% put this line in a match. And because, to be fair, the weather's a little bit cooler, so I imagine, even though there'll be some good weights, there'll probably be quite a lot of bad weights as well. So if you can be on the right side of them lower weights, you do well in a match. Before I lay my rig in, probably should have fed it a little bit sooner, that shot. Some of them maggots are floating from lanes this week. Have you seen it?
I noticed that earlier. They're sinking now. They're taking time, aren't they? And there's still two on top.
So it's carrying them a little bit. Them ones that are floating about are getting carried away, but I can see when I chuck them maggots in, the vast majority of them are dropping. I think meat's the worst bait for drifting off when you chuck it in. It's like semi-buoyant, it just sort of lingers and just starts to drift off. I think that's one issue with meat fishing, when it's windy and it's towing, it can really drift off. When you start to look at your maggots when you chuck them in and drifting a little bit too far down your head, what I'd personally do is chuck them slightly further up down toe. You know what I mean? Sorry, up the toe and let them drag it. Sometimes you can do that as long as the bottom's quite flat where you're fishing on. You can do that, it's not a problem. But I normally, when I'm F1 fishing, I tend to try and adjust the feed more than me trying to follow the feed. When you're silverfish fishing, sometimes you're better off letting your rig set. I tend to find as soon as your rig drifts through for carp and F1, they're a bit different to silverfish. So again, this has gone a little bit quiet now, so potentially when it goes under this time, it might be an F1, hopefully. No, it's gone quiet because there's nothing there now. Little perch. So what I'm going to do, even though probably not the right move yet, I want to talk through the ground bait.
I'll send the videos
what
to
I
you
would
later.
do. So,
Give me a phone number.
say for example, I've tried that line, I've started foul looking and they're ripping the bottom up, I feel like I want to come up onto the harder bottom. Initially what I'd start by doing is throwing some maggots in first and seeing if I can catch them without putting the ground bait in. If that's not happening, and often when you find that they don't really want to come in, just throwing maggots in there, foul looking in there, you're a bit stuck for what to do. I just find putting some ground bait in. Probably not going to put a full 200ml pot in, I'll put about 100ml of ground bait in. And all I do, go out to the marker and I just like shake it in like that and make a big cloud with it. Like I say, I'm not trying to create a really tight area of ground bait and fish and feed ground bait. I'm just trying to put a bit of smell in the water and attraction to drag some fish in.